finance law, the law really can move distinctly to the right, and as you suggested, for a long time. You know, a president can come in and replace the policies of Donald Trump after the next presidential election, but a Supreme Court justice is there for these days, you know, minimum a quarter century.
And the president today, when he talked about this briefly, he made reference to this list of 25 names that's been out there, potential nominees from the 2016 campaign. When you look at the names that are in circulation, when you look at what we saw with the Gorsuch pick, how that came together, are we basically looking almost at like a cookie cutter here, a cookie cutter model where they're all likely to be largely the same ideologically, or are there any wild cards when you look at the names under consideration here?
Yeah, I think it's a cookie cutter, and conservatives think it tastes really, really good. You're talking about the farm team that the Bush administration put in place 10 years ago, and Republican governors, for example, in Texas did the same thing. So they have a group of nominees who they aren't really concerned will come onto the Supreme Court and drift to the left, like a lot of justices like our retired Justice David Souter did. So I don't think there's a huge array of difference. Of course, in any individual case there can be, but on the core issues that Americans care about, abortion, affirmative action, gay rights, gun rights, campaign finance, they're all going to be pretty similar, and they're going to be a step to the right of Justice Kennedy.
Let me bring in Chris Matthews on the politics of this and that confirmation battle that now looms. And Chris, you've been all over our airwaves the last few hours calling on Democrats to fight this. Let me ask you, from a political standpoint, if you're Democrats sitting there with 49 votes in the Senate and you need to bring over at least one, probably a couple of Republicans to have a chance of knocking this off, what is the best argument or the best tactic that Democrats would have to pick off those Republicans?
How about survival of the Democratic leadership? You know, in 2016, look what happened. Hillary Clinton, the establishment candidate, won. How did she win? The party rules helped her. They had debates during NFL games, any way to protect her from a serious onslaught from Bernie Sanders. Then they go ahead and they lose. They never even got a vote of Merrick Garland for the Supreme Court. And now we're talking about having a vote in the next 4 or 5 months, right before a midterm election, on this, whoever Trump cooks up. I don't think the party leadership can survive this. How do you explain that you couldn't stop it when you have 49 senators and they just had 50? You know, just a few years ago, look at the way the Republicans have played the rules. First of all, they said it took 60 senators to approve a Supreme Court justice back 2 years ago. It also, that's 60 years. Then they got rid of that from the nuclear option. And they said also, we're not going to elect anybody or nominate or confirm anybody in the year before a presidential election. So they denied confirmation, or even hearings, or even meetings with Merrick Garland, the Democratic nominee of President Obama. And so they're playing all these games. It's 60 votes now. It's 50. Oh, by the way, we're not even going to have a vote on it. And here they come in and they say, well, let's do it nice now. Let's make sure we have a vote, even though we only have 50 votes to their 49. Let's have good order here. It's not going to happen. If Schumer goes along with that, the whole gang of them are going. Look what happened to Joe Crowley yesterday. He's gone. The left of the Democratic Party, the progressive base of the party, and that's minorities, young people, millennials. It's also Hispanics, Latinos, African Americans. They're tired of losing. They're tired of losing.
Chris, I think what I'm trying to get to the bottom of with you is this: if every Democrat adopts the posture you're talking about, fights this, makes all the points you're making, and they stand together, they got 49 votes.
They lose.
So my question is, politically, what's the best strategy and the best tactic for a Democrat to get a Republican to flip on this?
Okay, let's go this way. Let's do it this way. The day after Trump's nominee for the Supreme Court this time around, say in October, gets confirmed by the United States Senate by 1 vote. You don't think the Democratic base is going to go wild about that? I'm telling you, they're going to say, how did you not use your procedural votes, your dilatory tactics, parliament procedure, with all the tricks they pull in the Senate, and you couldn't delay this with 1 less vote than the Republicans? They will not believe it. It will not seem believable that they couldn't stop a Senate from approving a presidential nominee for just 50 votes. It used to be 60, now it's just 50. It doesn't look right in the history books.
But what is the tool? What is the tool? What's the instrument? You're saying I understand. I completely understand what you're saying about the base being fired up about this.
It's his job to do it. It's not about fired up. I'm telling you what the party's going to be fired up about.
Sure, but if the party wants to pull out all stops, and you're saying they're not going to accept it, you don't have 50 votes, you can't beat this. I'm saying, what's the tool
Steve, let's talk about this in a couple of weeks, and we'll see who's right. All right? We'll see who's right.
Chris, I'm trying to ask you what the tool is, that's all. What is the tool? Because the filibuster's gone.
They will find a way to do it.
Okay.
There are ways to slow down votes. There are ways to prevent a modest majority of 50 to 49 from getting its way. They will find that way or they will fail. And if they fail, they will lose their leadership. The party will not accept failure on this front. They not allow somebody to come into the Supreme Court for 30 years. For 30 years because they won by one vote. It's not going to be acceptable. And by the way, to answer another question, I don't think Susan Collins is going to vote for somebody to the right of Anthony Kennedy. I'm not sure Murkowski will. I think you'll find some others out there.
Well, there you go. That's what I was asking you. That's what I was asking you. There we go. I was asking where's the Republican opposition going to come from?
That's not the only way.
That's what I was trying to get to there. Let me bring Tom Goldstein back in.
No, that's not the only way. You're wrong. There are other ways to do this if you're in the minority. The minority can stop things. There's so many ways to stop. But how about some really? Well, we'll see. We'll see how they do it.
Tom Goldstein, are you aware of a mechanism or a procedure that Democrats could invoke to kill this short of 50 votes?
No, and it's not even going to be that close, unfortunately, for Democrats. The real issue is this. Democrats are going to have to vote because there's no procedural way to stop it before the midterm election. And there are just too many people who are running in elections, senators in states that Donald Trump won. There's going to be enormous pressure on them since they can't beat the nominee to vote for the nominee. So I'll take Chris's bet at 10 to 1. I think that whoever it is going to get confirmed by about 56 to 44. And Democratic leadership, Chris is absolutely right, is going to try and lay down on the tracks. The problem is the train's just going to run over them. There isn't anything that they can do.
We'll see.
Okay, we'll take a closer look a little bit later in the show.
What you just said, sir, it's not acceptable politically to the Democratic base. It's not acceptable to accept this as a fait accompli, which you just did. You can't just say there'll probably be Republicans or even some Democrats like Heitkamp and Manchin are going to vote for this nominee. If you take that complacency and acceptance of the force of this history, in other words, for the next 3 decades or more, we're going to be run by a 5-4 right-wing court, and just accept that.
Okay, Chris, channeling, I think, clearly the passions of the Democratic base here. We're going to measure it up against the reality of the math and the Senate here in a little bit.
If you lay down like the experts are saying, and lay down and accept this as history that can't be stopped, you're going to see a political party in serious implosion. You watch.
Got it. Chris Matthews, Tom Goldstein, thank you both for joining us. And ahead, much more on this breaking news of Justice Anthony Kennedy's retirement. Get ready for a political battle for the ages. Getting a little bit of a preview of it there. The next justice could shape the